let's have a look at some beautiful martial attack games. First game up, Vasily Ivanchuk versus Peter Lecco. E4, E5. We see the Roy Lopez on the board. Standard stuff, B5. And of course, black does not play D6 as discussed in our previous videos. And D5. Marshall Gambit, here we go. Captures. White accepted the pawn. And we know that Frank Marshall played knight f6 in this position. But as time evolved, the modern day chess grandmasters play pawn to c6. White continued to develop his pieces, so to speak, opening up his pieces at least. Bishop d6, the rook retreated, and all of these moves have been seen before, right? So, pawn to g3, and this is a bit of a concession. These light squares over there are a bit more weak, and the owner of the light squares, from White's point of view, is the light squared bishop, and he's a bit misplaced right now. So, these two pieces over here of black are looking to have some fun on the light squares. Queen e2 was played, and maybe White wants to come and defend his king. Bishop g4, queen f1. Of course, if you are going to play a gambit, you don't want to trade queens. So queen h5. Knight e2. White's got to get his pieces out. And what to do? We have developed all of our minor pieces. Black is still down a pawn. What to do? In this position, f5 was played. Very nice move. And of course, it's taking away the e4 square, first of all, from the knight. And it's also kind of hinting at involving the rook. It does pin the knight, but the knight for now is just going to stand there and look good. Why not? Pawn to c4. White needs to do something, and something fast, because black is already threatening to open up lines toward the enemy king. And these pieces over here are not really participating in the game. So, White played pawn to c4. And what did Peter Lecco did? The grandmaster from Hungary. The super grandmaster from Hungary. Can you take a guess what black played in this position? Where's all my Marshall Gambiteers? Let's see if you got this one right. Yes, indeed. Pawn to f4. Wow. So, black is basically just giving up the knight in order to accelerate the attack. Pawn takes knight, white accepts. And c5! Oh my goodness! c5, of course, this now tames that bishop. That bishop has no more ideas about bothering us. And of course, it's an invite. If white captures, the dark squared bishop will be extremely active. So, white has no interest in capturing. He played rook to e4. Things are already looking uncomfortable here for white. Pawn to c4. The bishop dropped back. Pawn takes g3. Pawn takes g3. And bang! Bishop takes g3. Okay, now, I know if you are playing with the white pieces, you probably don't want to see this after a solid 20 moves. Right, so white decided to accept the piece to thwart the checkmate threats, but he has to give up his queen. And white is basically saying here that, okay, I've given up my queen, but I've got enough pieces, because black has already given up so much material. Let's see how black continued. Queen to h3. The white king is still exposed, though. Bishop f3 is a huge threat. So rook e3 was played. Of course, you gotta bring in your last piece. Bishop d2. Bishop f3. And now the threats on the light squares are just too strong. So white decided to give up his rook. Rook takes. And okay, white's got 3 minor pieces for a queen. Usually that is good. But as we've pointed out, the white king is so exposed, and black even throws in a little exchange sacrifice. And after a few moves, we can see that the queen is so active. By the time the rook gets into the game, black has already constructed a nice plan here that involves his pawns. Few moves later, black won a nice game. Pawn to c2 was played, and of course, after a move like rook takes c2, most likely black would play queen e4 with lots of problems. For instance, rook takes c2, queen e4. If you want to defend the bishop, queen f4 just picks up the rook. So, beautiful game there by Peter Lecco. And that's what can happen in the Marshall Gambit. Let's move on to the next example. Next example, we've got a brilliant attacking player, Alexei Shirov, versus one of my favorite players, Levon Aronian. Let's see how this one continued here. So, we have our standard moves. Go check out our first two videos if you want to get a bit more familiar with all of these moves. Pawn to c3, d5. The gambit is accepted. Pawn to c6, d4. All standard ideas. You should be used to this by now, right? Queen h4, g3. And here Shirov comes up with a different option for white. The white goes rook to e4. What is that all about? So, the rook actually wants to just evict this pesky queen. And the question is, can we tolerate that from black's point of view? And can you find the move that black played over here? If you haven't played the Marshall Gambit and you are considering playing this opening, I think this is a really cool moment for you to try and find this move. Otherwise, if you are a Marshall Gambit player already, you should probably know this move. And Aronian played. Wow! Pawn to g5. My goodness. So, very directly, stopping rook h4. And white played queen f1. My question is, why does white not just take that free pawn? Uh-oh. Did you guys see that bar? The eval bar is not happy with white. And of course, yes, you've guessed it. We've got a double attack. And there's problems. Of course, there's no rook g4. The bishop on c8 has something to say about that. So, coming back, g5, beautiful move. Preventing rook h4. Queen f1, standard idea. Of course, black doesn't want to trade. Knight d2. The problem for this whole line is white's pieces are stuck on the queen side for just a few moments too long. Black gets enough time to build up some good counterplay. Bishop f5. And here Shirov decides, you know what? I'm not going to move my rook again. I would rather have you take it and I get a big center and thwart the attack. So, yes, it probably wouldn't make too much sense to play rook e1 now. Okay, not the rook e1 there, maybe rook e1 here. Because you've already moved the rook. Probably just something like rook e8 coming up next. So, instead, white played pawn to f3. And black first played knight f6. Phew, Aronian not greedy just to grab that rook over there. Pawn to a4, this is a typical idea. White wants to get his rook on a1 involved. And he gets the rook for the knight. Maybe a small little something. Queen g6, adding more pressure to the knight. Some trades happen. And of course, black is just up an exchange, right? Black is up an exchange. And white says, okay, but I've got two pawns. You sacrificed a pawn, and I've got another pawn for it, and your king is a bit open. So a very interesting position, and the evaluation bar actually shows that the position is equal. So what wonderful positions, what fresh positions can you get if you play this beautiful gambit? And queen g6, novelty. So these moves were seen before. Have you seen them? So a lot of theory in this Marshall Gambit, bishop d3. Some trades happened, and Aronian played a very nice technical game here to later on convert this with the extra exchange. And if we scroll through it, some work was left, but eventually that was sealed over there. Did I see correctly over here? King e8. Let's just go back here. So even at this moment, king e8, what if white captured this rook? Oh my goodness. What a beautiful endgame. King F8, and the king is stuck. Oh my goodness. White has to play a move like this. And we wait. And we wait. And then unfortunately, oh gee, you gotta give up. This, and the pawns can run. Let's give this one up. And the pawn can run. And of course, black doesn't need to take the last one. And we queen, and it will be checkmate soon. And have you seen such a long checkmate? Beautiful stuff. Beautiful game by Aronian, and another beautiful Marshall Gambit performance. So, lovely game by Peter Lecco. Lovely game by Levon Aronian against toughest opponents. And now let's look at another example. One more similar example. So we have this time around Peter Lecco with the white pieces. And he's playing legendary Vladimir Kramnik. So we go into our Rai Lopez. Pawn to d5, white accepts the pawn. c6, d4. Queen h4, g3, queen h3. And this time around, Peter says, well, I play this with black. You know what? I'm going to put my bishop on e3 instead. And then maybe knight d2. Bishop g4, typical. Not too difficult to guess black's moves, right? Queen d3. And black just gets all the pieces involved. Knight to d2. And here, rook to e6. This is a move that you can perhaps just store in your memory bank. You'll see it from time to time. And it's a flexible move. Of course, black wants to double up. And this rook is also useful on that rank over there. Maybe sometimes even going to h6 with some dangerous threats. So, what did white do? He played a4. Now, rook h6 can probably be met by knight f1. So, queen h5 was played. Interesting move. Takes. Queen f1. So, black wanted to put the bishop on h3. Bishop d1. White is defending. White is defending for his life. Queen f5, queen e2. And Kramnik tries to mix things up here. c5, the bishop on e3 is of course pinned. So he would love for white to capture there. That would just increase the pressure so much. And you can even play a beautiful sacrifice over there. Bishop takes c5. So interesting stuff over there. c5 played. Knight f3. And an amazing bishop f4. My goodness. Bishop f4, the pin is on the e-file, and would you capture with your g-pawn? I think not. Perhaps just a two-move combo over there. So, queen d2, knight takes e3, bishop back, and you can see that black has got good compensation with his bishops. Queen f2, double up, and all the black pieces are just nicely placed. Even the trades happen, f6. And we have a very, very interesting position here. Rook takes e5, brilliant. So, white has to take on h3, and e3 collapses. And Kramnik did Kramnik things here by converting this opposite color bishop in game. Perhaps not the smoothest one, but indeed a victory is a victory. Right? And, wow. Okay, so you gotta have some good technical skills as well to convert against these strong players. But beautiful. So as you can see, there's a lot of tactical ideas. Black's play, the flow of the game, it just flows. You know your pieces are going toward the king side, and white needs to catch up a bit, right? So white needs to deal with pressure if he wants to take that pawn in this gambit. So let's look at one more fun example. We've got another attacking player, Alexander Shabalov, versus, what do you know? Levon Aronian, our Marshall Gambit expert. Let's have a look what happened in this one. Another Rai Lopez. Standard stuff by now. You can play this with your eyes closed. c6, bishop d6. So white didn't wait for the rook to get chased away. He just went back immediately. And white comes up with an interesting one. White now plays pawn to g3. So that actually stops queen h4. Can this be a refutation? Let's see how Aronian bounces against this move. Bishop f5, pawn to d4. So he just arranges his pieces yet again to attack the light squares. Connects the rooks. Same move we've seen before, rook e8. Bishop g4, bishop f5, and white says, okay, I am not completely excited about repeating it. We've seen this move before, right? Knight f3, bishop g4, and the knight is on a lonesome escapade here. Rook to g6, and no white tempted fate here by playing f3. Think carefully before you push pawns in front of your own king, especially against a guy like Aronian. Ooh, bishop takes f3. Okay, so it's getting more difficult for white here, and white couldn't resist, and he captured, and I think the bar is telling us something, everyone. Perhaps he could have played something else like queen d2, but we are only human here, right? We are two human players. Knight takes f3 played, and bam! Bishop takes g3, takes, the king is wide open. Black is 2 pieces down though for a mere 2 pawns, but the king hunt continues. Woohoo! King e2, check, and the knight falls. So now black is only a piece down, but there's so much pressure on the e3 knight. And white decides it's time to trade. And as we can count now, 2 pawns for a bishop. But the main problem is white's king is so exposed. So king c2, rook e8, black gets his last piece into the game. Always get your worst piece activated, right? Bishop d2, check, rook b8, a3, rook g2, pressing the bishop, and white's pieces are all jumbled up. This is a sad sight. Very sad. Rook to e8, queen d1, please can we trade? And black says no thank you. Oh my goodness. Woo! Those pieces are active. Pawn to b3, queen c8, queen b2, and now I would like to ask you, how should black capitalize on this situation here? He's so active, white is all tangled up. Can you find a winning strategy? Let's see. Did you find h5? Wow, that's a nice idea. Let's see. Is it just to create space for the king, or what does Aronian have in mind? a4, and here we go. He's marching. Queen a3, all of white's pieces are on the queen side. Check, and h3. Oh my goodness. The pawn is marching. It's marching. It's marching. White is threatening something, I don't know what. Rook g1, queen h8, rook a6 check, blocks, rook a7. Some trades happen, and can you find the move that made white resign? Pause the video. Did you find queen to h1? And it's over. White resigned. Of course, after queen takes, we have queen b1 check. We pick up the opponent's queen. Beautiful stuff, and it is exactly what you expect from playing the Marshall Gambit, right? So I hope you got inspired by these games. I hope you checked out all the other videos, the first 2 videos, gaining some knowledge, some background on the opening, and lastly, I hope that you have fun playing this in your next event. I'm FoxTrainer. Keep on training. See you in the next one.